Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinars hosted by the Organization Development and Change Workforce Education and Development Program at Penn State. This is a part of our monthly lunch hour webinar series. My name is Marcia Ruimel, and I'm a doctoral student in the Workforce Education and Development Program at Penn State. I will be moderating today's webinar along with my colleagues Asa Al-Hatri, who is also in the same program, and Jose Sandoval, a PhD candidate in the Learning Design and Technology program at Penn State. For today's interactive webinars format, please use Zoom's chat feature if you have any questions during the presentation. Type them in the chat. The Q&A session will follow at the end of the presentation. Our online Master of Professional Studies in Organization Development and Change is designed for professionals seeking the skills and knowledge to lead organizational change effectively. Additionally, we offer master's and PhD programs in workforce education and development with concentrations in human resource development and organization development. Our program has established a continuous monthly free webinar series featuring experts from around the globe. Today, we are excited to present the AI imperative on becoming quintessentially human, which is also the article title authored by Dr. Stephen H. Caddy, our presenter today. Dr. Caddy is a distinguished professor and the founder of the doctorate program in Organization Development and Change at Bowling Green State University. With a rich blend of industry and academy experience, he is an author, an editor, and also the founder of Nexus for Change. Now, with further ado, please join me in welcoming our presenter today, Dr. Stephen Caddy. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And I really appreciate being here. And thank you to Dr. Rothwell for inviting me, along with all of your students. You've been so gracious and supportive and helpful. So what I'd love to do is, and Jose, you are managing the chat. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
Great, great. And what I'd love to do is I'd love if people could in the chat, just for a second, when you think of what it means to be quintessentially human, what words come to mind for you that mean being quintessentially human? I'd love to see that in the chat, if you could put that in. And while you're doing that, I'm going to share my screen, and then we'll be able to get started. So I see lots of things: response to the needs of others, true to self and others, showing emotion, unique, interactive with humans, creative, innovative, surprising, feelings. So many really great words here and descriptors. Connected to feelings and thoughts and the body, authentic, empathy, intelligence, purpose, treat others as you would want to be treated, compassionate, authentic and vulnerable, uniqueness, adaptable, thinking and feeling, empathy, empathetic, collaborative, mistakes, compassionate, becoming, empathetic, caring, and love, able to provide grace. So many great qualities that really, I think, differentiate and make for human beings. So I'm going to be talking to you today and sharing with you slides. I've got two screens here. I got you all here, and I'll be looking at you here, and then I'll be looking over here, kind of going back and forth as we walk through the presentation for today. And I'm really excited about the article that just came out, because it was my first attempt at trying to connect these three concepts: the notion of AI and how AI is becoming a much more involved and bigger part of our lives, professionally and personally. But looking at AI and the connection between AI and our education system and our society, and how education has worked over the last 200 years with us. When you connect those two with a third point that I want to bring in, and that's the neuroscience perspective and the effect on us in our brains, and how the brain science can help us understand this intersection between AI, education, and brain science. So what I'll do is I'll walk you through my thoughts. I got an article which you'll have access to that you can read later, and I'll put some links to the slides in here, and I know those slides will be shared with you as well. And so let's jump in. So you can see the article here, and again, like I'll make that available to you. But I want to talk about something that I have found as I've been sharing this concept. And when you try to make a case to people in organizations, businesses, community, and society, people that are really trying to get things done, if you will, and really focused on how to bring people together to accomplish common or shared goals, one of the things that comes up is this notion of competitive advantage. And competitive advantage comes from a concept that is called VRIO. What is it that your organization, your community, you personally do that's valuable, rare, hard to imitate, and operationally excellent? And so think about that. What is it? If it's valuable, okay, that's value. Can it be, is it rare? Is it that nobody else is doing it? And then you think, can it be imitated? And if you think about AI, what is AI imitating as we think of us as human beings? Think about what makes us as human beings competitively advanced. What gives us a competitive advantage? Why have we existed over so many thousands and thousands of years? What is it about us that has allowed us to do that? And so there's something that we do that's hard to imitate, that's also rare, and that's valuable. And what is AI going to be able to do that we do? So what is it that we can do that's different from AI? And then what can we do well? And how can we do those things well? So AI is automating those tasks, making them routine, and we've got these other things like all the words you've said here are talking about creativity and empathy and adaptability. And what we've got to do is we got to emphasize those qualities that help us have a competitive advantage individually and collectively in our organizations and communities. And so it matters precisely because we have to ensure that we remain central to innovation, creativity, and adaptability in the workplace. It matters because it is imperative for organizations to develop these quintessentially human skills that are less replicable by AI. So if AI can do it, we've got to find what's left. What is it that we do as humans that AI can't do? And so what makes us quintessentially human? You all said it beautifully in the chat. We're adaptable and resilient. Human adaptability and our ability to adapt is why we're still here on this planet. And it makes up for productivity boosts by 40%. Empathy and emotional intelligence, 70% of leaders attributing it to their success to emotional intelligence. And the creativity drives innovation. It enables complex problem solving, particularly collaborative. So we have got to focus on these things. Now, why is this important now with the onset of AI? It's important now with the onset of AI because we have to understand the impact of industrialization, particularly industrialized education or the factory model of educating. It was started in the early 1800s, and it was precisely designed to create docile, compliant workers. Workers who would do what they're told. Often it was said that you should check your brain at the door. And to create that, our education system started when our kids were the most formidable, when their brains were growing, when the plasticity was there, where the neural nets were working and growing and building. And we have to understand what was happening as they were sitting in rows and aisles, as they were being taught to be compliant and docile, as they were being taught to be ready to go into a factory setting and doing rote work. They had to do something to get them to do that. So they forced them into that. What they didn't recognize is that what they were doing is they were training what's called crystallized intelligence and ignoring fluid intelligence. So the crystallized intelligence is back here. It's the development. And as the front part, the prefrontal cortex begins to develop as children get into their nines, tens, and their teens and their 20s, and it stops growing in the late 20s, but it fully develops there, but doesn't stop developing, but it fully grows by the time you're in your late 20s. So as you're going through school and you're focusing on the crystallized intelligence, rote rule-based learning, ignoring fluid intelligence, ignoring adaptability, creative problem solving, empathy, human relation skills, and so forth. And we do that all the way through school. And we do that so they can show up into a factory and do what they're told and not complain and not even notice that they're bored. And as we do that, we sit them there and we prepare them for that new reality that they're going to step into after school. Factory preparation, hierarchical structure, mechanism, Taylorism, rote learning, lecture, passive learning, speak only when spoken to, okay? Standardization, age-based classrooms, batching classes, just like factories, efficiency focus. And if you know Bloom's taxonomy, all the lower level learning outcomes in Bloom's taxonomy. And it was all designed to prepare people to work in this industrialized work environments. And it ultimately impacted all of our society because it didn't just stop there. As industrialization continued to grow, but as new organizations were formed, as people were working in office buildings and all org structures, everything hierarchical, rows and aisles, cubicles, all of that was being created outside of the factory. So it just spread as in terms of across the entire society. Business and organizations became really created around this notion of using and working on crystallized intelligence at the neglect of the prefrontal cortex, where you collaborate, innovate, critically solve problems, have empathy and human relation skills and all those things, self-regulation, all of that in the back of the brain where you have reaction, fight or flight, all of those things. Talk more about it here. We'll talk about that. So you can see that it builds crystallized intelligence. Schools build this crystallized intelligence. They ignore the fluid intelligence, the prefrontal cortex. And the unintended consequence of this is it really built crystallized intelligence, and then it began to create systems that supplanted fluid intelligence. Essentially, without fluid intelligence being developed, other things had to be put in place, rules and procedures and all kinds of where people are looking to be told what to do, how to think, where to go, how to behave, only spoke when spoken to. And so industrialized education supplanted that. So essentially, fluid intelligence was neglected. Now what happens? The unintended consequences. I'll talk a little bit more about it here and a little bit more as we go. But it basically, you neglect the PFC, prefrontal cortex, the brain shrinks, and lack of novelty can lead to reduced volume of the PFC. It literally reduces the frontal cortex, doesn't grow. It actually shrinks. It actually atrophies. Cognitive impairment, dementia, there's research showing 30 to 60-year age people, 66% increase of cognitive impairment and 37% risk of dementia, people who are in routine jobs, 30 to 60 years of age. The reverse Flynn effect is talking about how IQ may have started to plateau, even decrease over the last 200 years. And the interesting thing here is that by 2033, there will be more people over the age of 65 than under the age of 18 who have all been going through this process. As AI is coming in, as we are trying to figure out how to move into this new reality with AI. So let me summarize this for you. Routine jobs and routine-based work, starting with the classroom, then go out and go into work, routine-based jobs. You have a 60% of employees report disengagement, 75% cite limited opportunities for innovation. You have increased burnout. You have 50% of employees in rigid roles experience above average stress and poor adaptability and resistance to change. You get companies dependent on rigid, repetitive rules are 30% more likely to fall behind competitors. The long-term cognitive consequences, like I just said, 60% higher risk of mild cognitive impairment and 37% increased risk of dementia is what's happening. The rigidity of the job routines means limited adaptability. Crystallized intelligence doesn't know how to be adaptable. The prefrontal cortex is struggling. People are trying to figure out now how to utilize it when it's been dormant and neglected and not being used. And the brain is no longer as plastic as it could, or the plasticity of it is not there. And it makes it hard to learn and adapt to changing circumstances. This is not good. It's not. I think it's a call. It's a call to action is what's happening. And AI is going to force us to have a call to action. And that's why the AI imperative is that we have to develop those quintessentially human skills that can't be otherwise created and developed and done. So we have to begin with new ways of teaching and learning and working together. We have to shift from that left side there to the right side where you can see that you have to work, solve problems, wrestle, deal with stress. And one of the interesting things, and I'll talk about this some more, is that stress is essential to growing the brain. The thing that has to be done is you have to give people the tools to deal with the stress. So when people have stress and they don't know how to deal with the stress, they don't have healthy tools for dealing with the stress, they end up creating more harm in their brain and more challenges with developing the prefrontal cortex. So essentially, we have to give people tools that require the use of the prefrontal cortex to better manage stress. Then we have to put people in stressful situations so they can practice using those tools. And in that experience, you begin to grow the brain, grow its adaptability, the resilience, the grit, and all of those other things that are essential and quintessentially human. And so what I'd offer to you is we need to not just flip classrooms. This is a model on the flip classroom. You all may be familiar with this, those of you that are teaching and so forth. The flip classroom is essentially what you do is you take students and you have them prepare to participate in class activities before they come into the classroom. This looks like things like having them read the book, take a test, and do the materials. I did this in a class of mine, and I do it now. I used to have them read the book, I'd lecture on it, and then we would do a test afterwards. I then changed it and thought, hey, this is too much, because I felt like I was reading them bedtime stories, essentially. So one class, I was standing there in the front of the classroom. It was a lecture hall. It was probably 200 something students. I'm standing there talking and I'm lecturing, and in that moment, it was an eerie feeling of being really bored with myself. I just didn't want to hear myself talking. I was like, what am I doing here? This is horrible, actually. So I went back to the drawing board and really started looking at experiential learning, synergogy models of learning, situational learning, problem-based learning, and looking at all these different models. There's a really great book called Make It Stick. And it's a book that talks a lot about the science of learning. And one of the things is we've got to put people in challenging situations and then give them tools to work and practice using tools to deal with the situation and to solve the problems in the situation. And that is the content of the class. So what I did in my class is I took and I gave them the materials for the class. I gave them some readings and some videos, and they read it, and I did not lecture on it. And then I gave them the test. And then when they came to class, we took like 3 or 4 of the key things I wanted them to really learn at a deeper level, and we practiced them in the class. Interestingly, the test scores were no different between me lecturing and me not lecturing. The test scores were the same. I give them the book, I lecture on it, gave them a test, gave them the book with support materials and the test, the same. So what am I doing in the classroom? So flip classroom concept is give them work to do, pre-work to do, come into the classroom during the class, and students practice applying key concepts, getting feedback, working on real-time problems, and then they get evaluated on that. They literally even turn assignments in during class. They do an assignment as a group, and then they turn in the solutions class, and they get graded on that. And then students check their understanding and extend their learning after the class. In work, think of this like, if you look at this model here, look up here and think of the during as a meeting. Think of those people there, those 3 people there, they're in a meeting. You have a meeting, and before the meeting, you send out a note. I'm gonna give you two, the old school and the new school, flipping meetings, for example, flipping work in the workplace. Before the meeting, you just send out a note. Hey, we're gonna have our meeting, and here's the agenda. People then come to the meeting, they sit. It becomes a talking one to many. That is, one person's talking to the rest of the group. And the meeting is a report out. And how many of you have been to meetings where you're wondering, what was the purpose of that meeting? I didn't need to be there. I could have read that. I could have watched that. I didn't have to be sitting here in this meeting. Why did we spend all this time? And I would tell you that I think probably some of my anecdotal with my clients, I've asked them, I did it one time and asked them, what percent of your time are you in meetings? 70%. What percentage of your meetings are talking meetings where you're just being talked at? About 70% of those, right? So it's like, okay, so you have a large chunk of time that you're spending in meetings, and a large chunk of those times you're sitting there where people are just talking at you. So why not flip it? Tell them, here's the meeting, here's the agenda, give them some materials, and give them a question to address, give them a question to come prepared to discuss, give them a problem to think about, and have them come to the meeting prepared to address that question. So you don't regurgitate the information you shared with them. They have to come to the meeting ready to use that information to solve a problem. That's flipping meetings. And so that's an example of how we begin to engage the prefrontal cortex. And the research does show that you can build plasticity in the brain for people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and so forth. It's not too late. It's harder. It's a little harder to get them to soften up and to start moving. But once you start getting and doing it and start wrestling and doing this and shifting your meetings, if you flip your meetings, you'll start noticing over time, people will start getting it, but they'll be resistant. Be sure of that, because it's more comfortable to be in the old school using crystallized intelligence and being told what to do and showing up. So try it with me if you could. And I wish Jose, are you able to turn on your camera?
My camera
Yeah. Yeah.
or everyone's camera? My
Your
camera.
yeah, your camera. You just do it with me, okay? So
Okay.
Jose, so cross your arms. All right, now. All right, now I want you to switch it, cross them the other way.
Like this.
Like switch them the other way. So cross them regular, cross them like just cross your arms like you regularly would. Now cross them the other way. Okay.
This. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's okay. How's it feel?
It's feeling weird.
It's weird, right? And you're just
Yeah.
crossing your arms, right?
Yeah.
Think
Yeah.
about it. You're just crossing your arms. And so what happens is when we start using fluid intelligence, we start using our prefrontal cortex, it feels uncomfortable. And so the tendency is to resist change because we want to go back to the way it was before. And particularly as we begin to try to get people to move in the direction of becoming more quintessentially human, as we get people to start using their whole brain, as we start inviting people to step up and grow their whole human self in their organizations, in their communities, in their roles as leaders, as consultants, as educators, as researchers, as we begin to move in that direction, not because we necessarily want to, but because we have to, because AI is going to do all of that VRIO. It's going to start imitating the things that we can do, the valuable, rare, hard to imitate, and operationally done excellent. What is AI going to do? It's going to take the things that we do as humans that are valuable and rare. It's going to start imitating them and doing them better than we can do them as human beings. So what's left? We've got to find the things that AI can't imitate. And if we can do that and build those out as operationally excellent as human beings, We will then build those quintessentially human skills. And I'll tell you, it's the competitive advantage for the future of organizations and communities. So if you're leading an organization, or if you're working in an organization, want to say, what's the future for competitive advantage for us? Is we have got to build our people side of our business. We got to build the quintessentially human skills in our organizations. We got to build those skills across our organization, top, bottom, left, and right. Here are some strategies that you can do to help that happen in your organization. The first is stimulate cognitive flexibility. Encourage things like role switching and cross-departmental projects to build adaptability. Do things that cause people to have to solve problems, work together with other departments. I was working on a book project 20 years ago, and it was one of the first digital book projects when it was in the early 2000s. And that project required, for the first time, the print editorial team to talk with the digital editorial team. They'd never talked in this publishing company, never met together, never got to see the world through each other's eyes, never got to figure out how to collaborate or anything like that. We got to create situations where we bring people together that don't normally come together and get them to be working on problems and to learn to see the world through each other's eyes. In addition to that, we can do role switching. Actually have a person go and do your job and have you go and switch and do that other person's job for a day, for a week, whatever it might be. Get people really looking to see the system and getting them to shift and start seeing and making connections. Cross-departmental projects. Find projects that require departments to have to collaborate together. Don't create an intra-departmental goal or task. Start creating projects that require 2 or more departments to have to work together to get the task done. Reimagine strategic planning. 2 ways to do this. First is shift to more participatory processes in strategic planning. Strategic planning is typically an intellectual exercise that a small group of people do. And what they do is they go through and do strategic data collection, strategic analysis, strategy development, and they do it as a small group. They walk out and they say to everybody in the organization, we're going to pick something like ADCAR, and we're going to use ADCAR to help us roll this out and communicate it strategically and get everybody to comply and follow what we've decided as a small group around strategy. Flip it. Use Mintzberg's work where he talks about strategy bubbling up. Find ways to use participatory or collaborative change processes, very specific techniques that engage the whole system in a conversation of understanding the history and current state of the organization, coming to an agreement on what they want to be doing together as they move into the future, and then creating action plans together for making that happen and putting the systems in place to ensure follow through. I just described to you what's called the change formula. So if you want to write this down, it's a really great formula for explaining to people how change happens. It's D times V times F times S. I have an article on that in ODR, and if I can pull it up, I can put it in the chat, or I can give it to our organizers here and they can get it out to you. But it's on the change formula and organization development review. And if I can, I'll drop it into the chat while we're doing some Q&A if I can multitask. But essentially, here's what the formula says. In order to create real change, you have to have a common dissatisfaction with the current state. That doesn't mean you have to be unhappy, because there are plenty of people that are very happy being, very satisfied being miserable, right? So happiness and satisfaction don't go hand in hand. You have to be dissatisfied with your level of happiness, because you can be very happy, just win a championship or accomplish a great task and say, you know what, I'm glad, but I got still something more to do. So you got to be dissatisfied with your current state, and you need to create a collective dissatisfaction in the organization that, yeah, we're doing great in these areas and we got some areas to improve, but we could do better. And we want to do better together. Now the question is why? Well, that's the next variable in the formula. You have to have this dissatisfaction and a desire for change, D, times V, an ennobling vision of what you aspire to become as an organization, individually and collectively. You got to connect the individual desires to a collective vision for what people want. This is what I need. This is what we want to achieve. So collect the individual needs with a collective want of what you want to become as an organization. And those participatory processes help you do that. So you have this D, this dissatisfaction. you have this V, an ennobling vision of what you aspire to become individually and collectively. Multiply that times first steps, actions to take in the short term that can move you towards that vision. And then you multiply that times S, supporting mechanisms, the things that need to be in place to ensure follow through. The product of those four, D times V times F times S, must be greater than R, resistance to change, in order to move the organization and shift it. So when you do strategic planning, it's important to do it in the way that you do it, a participatory way that engages people around the DVFS, so you can shift the organization into the future. In addition to that, what you want to do is you want to create a strategy document that begins using fluid intelligence language, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, those things versus crystallized intelligence, compliance, following rules, doing what you're told, rote kinds of strategy language. So you really want to shift into that new kind of language, that fluid intelligence language. The next thing that you want to do is you want to optimize your team meetings. I just gave you a whole flipped classroom concept of flipping the meetings. And that's essentially what I want you to think about is how do you reduce the routine tasks in meetings and prioritize creative engagement and problem solving in those meetings using the flipped classroom concept. Redesigning jobs and processes. Empower employees to co-create roles with you. Use participatory and collaborative processes. There's research that shows that when managers assign goals and objectives, they typically are lower than if the employees create them themselves. Most managers think of, well, I've let them set the goals, they're going to set really low goals. But that's not what the research shows. It shows that when you engage employees in creating goals and setting objectives, they typically set them higher than the managers would. So you want to really promote this co-creation of job roles and setting of goals and those kinds of things. Promoting experiential learning. Use role rotation, workshops to enhance both practical and emotional intelligence. Get people experientially having to deal with themselves. This idea of teaching everybody to operate as an intellectual exercise, learning a concept, and then you know how to behave, you know how to work and collaborate and do all those quintessentially human things. It's not legit. It's not legit. And then you need to move into the quintessentially human relation skills where people are having the empathy, stress, all the things that you all had mentioned here. And we have to really build people, help people build the skills for dealing with stressful situations, how to self-regulate. Because what I think we've done is when you look at what's in the back of the brain, that is where fight or flight exists. That's where sadness exists. That is where fear, anger, and shame exists. Empathy is more located in the front part of the brain. The ability to empathize, to collaborate, to engage, to understand others, and to self-regulate. That means to notice when you're triggered and be able to make the right choice and to deal with emotions from back here when they come up. Because here's the thing I want you to get is that your front part of your brain, that's what runs the whole show for you. You run your whole self from this part of the brain. The crystallized intelligence, the back part, has data, facts, rote learning, all those basics. It has fight or flight, survival types of things. It's back here. It's reactionary, proactive, reactive. So if this is not in charge, this takes over. If this takes over, that's where you get incivility and all the other things that happen in the workplace. So what you have is you have to build the front part and teach it and give it the tools. And this is giving yourself the tools to use this part of your brain to better manage your whole self. So what I think is important is that when you want to build a future-ready workforce, what you want to do is look at human uniqueness as a competitive edge, not as human uniqueness as we don't need emotions in this workplace. Oh, the people side isn't as important. We got to make money first, performance first. It can no longer be that. The human uniqueness is what's going to give people the competitive advantage to achieve higher performance, profitability, and other key goals that an organization sets and to make the difference that it aspires to make in the world. to have that impact in the world that it aspires to make. So it's really important that we recognize that the quintessentially human skills are the competitive advantage of the future. How we build them, it's going to be a long journey. We have to unlearn, relearn, build new ways of working. We got to change our org structures and all of those things like I was talking about. And we have to have a commitment to continuous learning. We have to be willing to look at ourselves. And one of the things I'll offer to you is you don't have to be perfect in order to advocate for these things. You might think, well, how can I do this if I'm not doing it as well myself? You need to go ahead and be willing to just be imperfect and try. That's the whole notion of using the prefrontal cortex, the whole brain, and developing it. The new learning model is about being willing to make mistakes, to try, and to aspire to something, but don't ever worry about, starting and, waiting until you're perfect. You have to start now. And you want to be the change that you want to see in the world, as is often said. Well, in this case, you need to be committed to the change you want to see in the world and be committed to that change in yourself. And so that's what I think is fundamentally important. It all begins with me. I can begin working on me and how I develop those skills and work on those quintessentially human qualities that I think make us different and will make us competitive as we go forward. So what'll happen is this, and I'm in a business school, so I'm going to speak particularly from me as a business school, the implications for my business school as an example. But essentially, you have two pathways. AI is not going to replace humans, but humans with AI are going to replace humans without AI. That was in an HBR article. What I would offer to you is that there will be those who manage AI and those who will be managed by AI. I literally think that what's going to happen, what you're going to see, is a bunch of people who, when they cross their arms, like, I don't like this. I don't want this new way. I don't want to do this thing. I want to go back to the way I was. Tell me what to think. Let me use my crystallized. I don't want to develop my prefrontal. I just want you to tell me what to do. And then what's going to happen is there are going to be those that say, no, I'm inspired by this. I want to use AI. I want to manage AI. I want to be the one utilizing AI to help me go become even more quintessentially human. It becomes an aid for me. And there'll be those that don't. And then what's going to happen is those that are using AI and managing AI and so forth, they'll have clones. It's already started. You can clone yourself in a lot of different ways now. And it'll clone you as a supervisor, leader, manager. And those that don't want to use fluid intelligence, that want to be told what to do, you'll have an AI supervisor that will manage those people for you, and they'll do what they're told, and they'll be satisfied just doing what they're told. Because remember, you can be satisfied and miserable, maybe satisfied and not in touch with yourself, maybe satisfied and underachieving and bored, satisfied with the level of boredom that one's experiencing. And so there'll be people that will have an AI supervisor duplicating me, my clone, supervising the people. They're going to be happy in their board work where they're compliant, rule following, docile, doing their thing. There'll be another group that I'll be working directly with. We'll be using AI to create, to innovate, to collaborate, to solve, and to move forward together and build new things that are exciting, in our lives. And again, when we look at your birthday and your death day on your tombstone, you look at it and you see date of birth and your death. There's a dash in there, and that dash is where life happens, and it's brief. So learning how to get into this new AI journey is going to be exciting, but it's just the dash. That's where all of life happens for us, and it's fast. So I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen 30, 50, 60 years from now. I'm going to right now embrace AI, learn how to use it, learn to collaborate better. I'm going to do all of those things and have fun with it. And the next generation will take it from there. But I'm going to always let's focus on what makes us quintessentially human. Let's develop our whole selves, mind, body, spirit, and emotion. So here are some resources that are in the links for you. I'll see if I can add the change formula in here into these links. I'll put it in here. I'll try to get it done before we wrap up because we got a few minutes to have some Q&A. So as you're out there listening, I see 31 messages on here, and I think some people may have put some questions in. What I'd like you to share for me, I'd really welcome a few things. If you could you share with me your reactions to we're going to go 3 parts. I'm going to ask you to answer this, and first question is about your reactions, and then I'm going to ask you about questions. So I'd like to first just get your reactions to what you're hearing. What did you hear, and what are your reactions right now? And then I'll go into a Q&A piece. But I'm just curious what your reactions are. Jose, could you come in and share with me your reactions? And if Marcha, if you want to, and Aza, if you want to, I'd love to hear your reactions. And for those of you that are here, this is the last slide. I'm doing a think tank series. You know, we are kindred spirits, us and Penn State and other programs doing OD&C. And we do a think tank series every Thursday. And when I give you the slides, you'll be able to check it out. We have every Thursday 3 experts looking at human-centered change for the next 3 months, and lots of great people. And so I invite you to come and check that out as well. I'll put that into the link. But let me go back. Jose, you want to jump in and tell me what did you hear, and what are your reactions? Before we get into questions, I'm just curious. What did you hear, and what are your
Oh,
reactions?
when I was listening to your talk, I had a lot of questions about how AI is impacting our context in different ways, not only in the job place or in the classroom. It's happening everywhere. Yeah, you know, like it is changing the whole way we interact with each other and with the system. So I am totally amazed by the points that you share with us, but I will let Marcia and Asa also sharing what they think about um, this amazing content. Just for you to know, like we have had an amazing exchange of impressions over the chat. A lot of people have been participating. A lot of questions have been asked. So yeah, I'm glad that we have a few minutes to go over
Yeah,
there.
for sure. Yeah, let's jump into some questions. But Aza, what do you think? What are your reactions? Marcia, what are you thinking?
So this is was sorry. This is what really interesting. So the thing that make me really like it click on my mind is when you said AI is not going to replace humans, because like some people are always saying that. So AI is not gonna replace humans, but humans with AI are going to replace human without AI. That's really interesting. It's really click in my mind, and I think I have to start thinking about this. Thank you so much for sharing this presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome. Marcia.
Yes. Asa took me all the words because that was the same thing I was thinking. People are talking about artificial intelligence, how it will replace people, and then that's stuck in your mind, right? So, and then you're thinking of what kind of job should I do that I cannot be replaced? But while you were saying that, I was like, okay, that's something else. That's another mindset. So thank you for elaborating on that, and thank you for this wonderful and very important presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And Jose, leave your camera on if you're willing. I like to see people.
Yeah, sure.
I don't
I'm just
I don't want to feel
checking
alone.
the
I feel
chat
kind of
and
alone. I'm not used to it. I like to do webinars with lots of faces, so I know I'm talking to people. I'd love to have everybody's face here. I don't know if you're able to do that, but I'd love to see everybody who's willing to have their cameras on. I don't know if you want to do that. We got about 15 minutes if you're able to do that. But I'm reading in the chat, so a good friend of mine was here, John Fred Miller. It says, "Hi, Steve." He's here for a little bit, so I'm so glad Fred was here. And then as I go through and I look at the comments, it's really neat to hear what you all are saying. I mean, well, let's see.
we don't
Here we
have
go.
the option of opening cameras for everyone, but if you want, we can ask a couple of participants
Thanks,
to
Alan.
open their
Yeah.
microphones.
Yeah, and Alan Klein's here. Hi, Alan. I know Alan, and he typed in the formula. This is great. Let's see. Wow, I've heard so many say the exact words. Jennifer says this. I've heard somebody say those exact words. Just tell me what you want me to do. We are undergoing an ERP upgrade, and that has turned into a business transformation project. The change resistance is strong. This is going to be the same as when the internet came into being. Great. Wow. Eye-opening. Really like the flip model, especially with meetings. Yeah, I think that's cool. Hi, Ryan. At once, hopeful and frustrated, said Ryan. So as you're thinking, if you all are out there, if you want to, I'd love to bring you in live. If you say, hey, yeah, I'd like to come and ask a question, just say, I'd like to come in and just write in, you can't raise your hand. I'm trying to think how you say, I want to talk. Just type in there, I want to talk, and I'll just bring you in to ask a question. You can type your question, but I might call on you too. But I'm scrolling through here. This call to action is immediately important. How might we affect change? Great perspective on how to navigate the AI world in an organization development type role. Reaction, intuitively, intuitively non-resistant, totally embracing. Sounds like a great support to emotional intelligence. Gave me some clarity about what I'm experiencing at work. There's tension between aspects of my job that are rote and where I would like to be more creative. Excited by the possibilities. Love the term quintessentially human. Sounds real at where we are headed. You bring a lot of social proof and research to truths that are fundamentally known. Felt very helpful, validating. Also appreciate your humility and vulnerability throughout. Flipping meetings will be implemented this week. Somebody said they're going to implement flip meetings this week. I believe it will be help our product. People often come to the discussions unprepared. I also have the team do the arm crossing exercise. Also, at the end, you showed your version of weird a bit. Your authenticity behind the veil makes you very approachable and interesting. I wonder what my version of weird was a bit. So that's really cool. I like being a little weird. So thank you for saying that. Everything I feel and think you said so eloquently. This biggest takeaway for me is that we can use or be used by AI. It's our choice. It makes me think, would like to explore how at the intersection of AI and quintessentially human. So develop your AI aptitude and master soft skills for your own personal competitive advantage. Otherwise, be left behind. Thanks, Steve. Hey, Dave Jameson. Good to hear from you. Good to have you here. The tech world is changing fast, and whether we like it or not, AI is going to radicalize the way we teach, learn, and work. Creativity is the new wave. That's my reaction. The part that stands out with me is humans with AI will replace humans without AI. It makes sense given the structure of the education system, but I do get nervous that we don't truly have standard, commonly recognized or respected ethics regarding the use of AI. Right? I'm using AI in the class, but this presentation provides some nice examples. Thanks, Steve. Hey, Bill. Bill Rothwell says that. Thanks, Steve. Excellent. I think your talk was on point. What I heard is that the human reigns. We need to use it like it does. The human brain reigns. Okay, I got you right. I also love the explanation of what's happening in the brain and why people might be showing up a certain way. So what questions do you all have? And would you like let me in? So Ryan wants to come in. You can bring Ryan in, Jose, and then who else would like to jump in, come in live here? People like flipping the meetings. People really are liking that. Yeah, so a lot of people like that.
Okay, Ryan, you can open your mic.
Wonderful. Greetings, everybody.
Hey there. And I'll just tell them real quick so Jose can find them. Eliv, Francis also wants to come in. And I'm just looking if anybody else wants to jump in to the conversation. We'll try to bring in.
And Graham.
And Graham would love to ask a question. So I'll look at this. But Ryan, why don't we jump in? So tell me your thoughts.
Obviously wonderful. I'm way in the human side of things and beloved your work. What I have is a question about those who are currently in the job market and are frustrated with the hiring practices that are currently standard, and wondering what you would propose as an approach to educating current hiring managers and executives who've graduated from the collegiate educational system and value the measurable quantitative skills and don't really understand or aren't necessarily convinced how the real skills of empathy, creativity, and collaboration are really imperative for the future of their organization?
That's a really tough question. I got a few reactions. And if we could, in the chat, if we could crowdsource, you heard Ryan's comment. If you all are willing, share your answer for Ryan, what he's asking. Are you all able to turn your cameras on? Ryan, are you able to? No, they're not able to? Okay, no worries, no worries. I wish I could see you all. But I'm glad to see you all here in voice. So if you all could answer Ryan's question, I'll just give a couple quick, one, this has got to be understood at the strategic level in organizations. We've got to understand, because the resistance to doing this is going to be to focusing on those things is going to be pretty high. And there's going to have to take leadership support in really changing how we go about hiring and the types of tools we use for hiring and the criteria and those kinds of things. And now emotional intelligence and all of those concepts have really been getting, there we go. I'm not sure what that is. So emotional intelligence has demonstrated that. But, Ryan, I think we're going to have to be intentional about it. I don't have an easy, quick answer than knowing that we got to look at what those skills are. If you look at the NACI skills, I don't know if you've seen the NACI skills. I'm going to look for that here. See if I might be able to pull that up, but I might not.
NACI is an acronym, or
yeah,
NACI
National
is a person?
Association of Colleges and Employers. And the NACI skills, the top 10 list of what employers want is problem solving. 89% of employers want problem solving skills. 79% of employers want ability to work in a team. 73% want communication skills. 72% want strong work ethic. 70% want flexibility and adaptability. 68% want verbal communication skills. 67 want technical skills. 66 analytical skills. 66 initiative, and 65 detail oriented. If you notice what the top 5 are: problem solving, ability to work in a team, communication, strong work ethic, flexibility and adaptability. Those top 5 are different than the bottom 5, which is communication, verbally, technical, analytical, initiative, and detail oriented. There's you see kind of a transition between that. I just think we're going to have to start thinking about how we create work so that it requires that, enabling people and really retraining leaders. We're going to have to really restructure everything about how we do organizations. And we're doing that. We're moving to more organic and other types of work environments. We're doing that. It's just going to take time. And we're going to have to be intentional and structured and really evidence-based in it. Let me stop there because we got other people here. Francis is here. Francis, you want to say hi?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
I can.
I don't have much of a voice today. So, Steve, this was a great presentation. It made me realize that the skills you put behind quintessential human skills are the skills we worked on in organization development for the last 40 years, probably.
Correct.
The challenge that we have now is that in this country, particularly, business people like trends. AI is a very compelling trend. So naturally, they are going to want to hire people who have a predisposition or orientation toward AI. So our problem becomes, how can we, with the same energy and the same passion we put forth human skills before, how can we now look at how to combine the two? So how do we orient managers, things we've always asked you to do? How can you use those same skills to use AI strategically? I think that's what I'm trying to say. So that it's supporting and facilitating not only human skills, but also profit in organizations. How do we marry those two together, not make this an either or?
Right. I think that's essentially, that's the key, is the and. I think that definitely is. And Jose, Sean G wants to jump in, and then I'll try to work through, and then we'll wrap up with the people that are here. So thanks, Francis. I appreciate that. And if you all have reactions to what Francis has said or any thoughts on that, please put in the chat. There's a lot of chat messages. It is really flying right now. But let's see here. So Graham, did you want to jump in and say hi and maybe pose a question or a reaction or a comment?
Sure. I was the guy who called you, said you showed a bit of your weird at one point as well.
Where was I weird? I thought, and I take it as a compliment because I want to do it again.
It's a compliment for sure.
Yeah.
And it's at the end when you're kind of imagining the future of AI. You kind of wear your inner child on your sleeve when you're talking about that. You kind of light up in that way. So I
Oh,
appreciate
wow.
that. Yeah.
Thanks, Graham. I really appreciate that. That's good to know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's on the slide called Building a Resilient Workforce, but you have about 6 principles there that are quite close to what I follow. So it's very validating to see them. In the second one, it says reimagine strategic planning. It says shift to participatory planning. So do you mean kind of like opening up the organization kind of democratically to decision making, or is it
Correct.
more kind of, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I have a book called The Change Handbook. I specialize in collaborative change or participatory change process, also called large group methods, techniques like open space, future search, appreciative inquiry, collaborative arts. There's preferred futuring. There's World Cafe. There's a host. I don't want to leave anybody out because we got in the book. I'll put also in the chat if I have time. Maybe at the end, we give everybody a 60-day access to the collaborative change library, which goes through almost 100 methods that we have now in there. So I'll make sure that you all get that with Jose and the team. I'll give links to articles. I'll put them in that last slide. When you get the slides, I'll put the link in the last slide too for you, so you can go take a look at it. So what are your thoughts on that? Was that it with your question? What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I kind of was wondering in the respect of how kind of broad or how you look at that, if you're kind of totally flipping the organization on its head, like you had some of these other things, or if it's more towards maybe the kind of side of the spectrum where you painted the team meetings and you're just trying to get people to engage a little more, and maybe they come with a question, which would be kind of like a lower, like easier entry point to the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? I was just
Yeah.
looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's in this collaborative change process or participatory change approaches. They literally leverage leadership and followership and really kind of it's not one or the other. It really brings both together in a conversation that is intentional and structured.
Yeah. Okay.
And it uses very specific techniques to do it. And there's a whole host of them. So you will get that. So you all will get access when on the slides on the last page on resources, I'll put a link with how you can get access to the library for like 60 days. So I want to make sure we wrap up because we only got a couple minutes. So I'm not sure how to say I live or L live or L live.
It's I live. Can you hear me?
I live. Hi, I live.
Good morning to everybody. Not in business, I'm in the education standpoint. Pretty interesting to hear what you're saying because I'm in creativity and education and problem solving. So to hear what you talked about this morning is everything that we've already been speaking in creativity,
Right on.
collaboration, using problem solving instead of what we're doing right now. I just quit my job 2 months ago because of that. Sitting in meetings where you're just feeling like people are talking at you and you're getting nowhere. So I quit and decided to start something new. So I'm looking at education consulting, but more changing the paradigm in education. Because I think education is where change starts, although we have forgotten that somehow. The research is where we start talking. I say I've been listening and hearing about AI for the past maybe 4 years. What I see is fair. And I think it's fear of change or fear of acceptance. So to hear you talk about it in that way excites me because I keep telling people it is going to revolutionize the way we do education, the way we do business, even the way we live, because some of us are going to be replaced if we don't use it side by side, as you said. So
Right on.
take advantage of it, create skills, grow the skills, teach the skills that are needed for us to use it as a tool. I see it as a tool.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask Sean G if he wanted to say something. So sorry I missed you.
Professor, I have to
So
jump
yeah,
in
yep, we have
and
to go.
letting you
So
know.
thanks, John. He's going to ask me
Professor.
offline. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to you. Yeah, but we're ready to wrap up.
Okay. So sorry that I have to cut you off
No worries.
because we have a very tight schedule. But I do want to give you at least 1 minute to answer one or two questions in the chat, in the Q&A session, and we can work it out and then send the participant the answer of the other questions through an email.
Okay. I would just wrap up by saying thank you. I think we got a lot of discussion and a lot of questions in here, and some people will reach out to me offline. You all are more than welcome to reach out to me offline and connect with me through that. You'll see that in the slides. You'll get all that information. So this is the beginning of the conversation, and I just feel really, really energized by being here with you all today. So thank you, and I hope everybody has a great day.
So thank you so much, Dr. Caddy. And on behalf of our OD&C WFED program, we hope you enjoyed today's session. If we did not answer your questions, please send us an email or reach out to the presenter directly via email. For the future webinars, we would like to hear your feedback on today's webinar. Please take the survey, use the link in the chat box. And I want to point out that we have another webinar coming up, and that's about a novel framework of socially responsible AI in people analytics by Dr. Yuling Chang. And it's on November 15th, so next month, from noon to 1 p.m. And of course, you can register, and it is all free, and it can be found on our website. You can also find us on our social media platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see you soon. Have a good day and a good night to our guests from other time zones. Thank you.